This is Dallas, a towering tribute to man's ability to raise beam on beam and stone on stone. From this distance, you don't see the 750,000 people who call this city their home. You don't see the 3,000 new residents moving into the area every month. But move in a little closer and you will. You will see a city reaching for 1 million population, a city with a complex network of lifelines, a city with a staggering traffic load.
Dynamic growth brings people and growing payrolls. As business grows, population grows, and the snowball keeps rolling until there appears to be no limit to the area's potential.
But there is a limit, and it's already pinching. The problem of traffic, a problem of Dallas progress.
The movement of traffic to and from the heart of Dallas becomes a more pressing problem day by day. In the long lines of inbound and outbound cars and trucks, you can measure the city's heartbeat. More people need to get more places in a shorter span of time, and this movement must be accomplished with adequate safety.
To bring this about requires planning and building, the crystal ball to visualize what the future needs will be, and then the follow-through to bring those plans to completion.
It's not a simple problem involving only one man's decision. It requires the help of everyone, from the traffic officer on the corner of Main and Ackerd to the mayor in City Hall. And the need stretches out from the heart of the city to the county line in all directions.
Traffic jams cost time and money. They blight a city driving business elsewhere.
Because of its tremendous growth in the past 10 years, Dallas has an even greater and more pressing traffic problem than most cities of its size. Consider these changes in the past decade. In December of 1945, the county had 171,000 workers going to and from their jobs every day. The load was heavy in that day and age for the roads and highways we had then. Today, with more than 322,000 workers on the go in Dallas County, traffic jams are bigger, the delays longer. Again, the cost in time and money more than doubles. Take the downtown section, for instance. Our streets are no wider than they were 10 years ago. But in that period, 25 new office buildings have pushed up into the skyline. Office buildings jammed with people who head in for their jobs each morning and out in the afternoon. If it were possible to spread their movement over 24 hours, the problem would be simplified. As it is, the congestion all comes at once.
Our many and new multiple-story parking garages have solved the problem of storage. They can handle the heavy flow of cars once these vehicles have gotten into the downtown area. But their very existence has created another problem, the traffic jams that pile up around their exits and entrances during the rush hours. They demand more and more traffic officers to keep the cars moving.
In the past 10 years, automobile registration in Dallas County has climbed to almost 1/3 including nearly 40,000 commercial trucks and truck tractors. Trucks and tractors spend more time on streets than passenger cars and create their own special problems. But they are a necessary part of the city's commerce. Without them, business supplies and food deliveries would dry up in a few short hours.
In the same 10-year period, 105,000 new homes have sprouted in the suburbs of the city and county. Again, the problem of greater distances to be traveled by more people.
These facts and figures present a challenge to Dallas. They point to the question facing every big city. Can we solve our traffic problem?
Fortunately, Dallas has been organized to meet its traffic problems for nearly 2 decades. The vision and foresight of Carl Rutland back in 1936 resulted in the formation of the Dallas Citizens Traffic Commission. In its first years, it was virtually a one-man crusade. In the past 2 years, under the leadership of L.H. Howdy Rideout, the Traffic Commission has been broadened to include men and women from every civic group in Dallas County. They have a single purpose: to recommend ways of improving traffic movement and safety.
Like any major difficulty, traffic must be analyzed in its separate parts before the whole problem can be solved. To do this, The Dallas Traffic Commission considers each problem in the light of three basic concepts: education, engineering, and enforcement, the three E's of the city's lifelines.
Education, engineering, enforcement.
The actual job of traffic law enforcement is in the hands of our city police, county sheriff's deputies, and state highway patrolmen. These officers have the monumental daily problem of keeping cars and trucks moving, a problem complicated by cotton bowl spectacles, the Christmas rush, and other events that bring in people from miles around. With these officers lies the responsibility of giving you and me traffic tickets when we violate driving or parking regulations. They are the enforcement arm that bears down on the speeders, curbing the fast drivers' impatience and thoughtlessness, reminding them all that they have the same rights, privileges, and responsibilities. Their job is also to track down and arrest the drunk driver wherever they find him, often a dangerous job as the irresponsible drunk weaves his thoughtless way through traffic. But if safety is to mean anything, if expressways are to serve their purpose, those who violate the laws must be arrested and convicted so that the law-abiding can drive in safety. The officers must also follow their cases through the courts. Without this effective follow-through, there would be no effective enforcement. Helping clear the log jams in the field of enforcement is the Internal Law Enforcement Committee of the Citizens Traffic Commission. This committee, working closely with various law enforcement agencies, sees to it that the guilty are punished and that citizens charged with minor violations are handled quickly and courteously.
Every year in Dallas, thousands of students in our grade and high schools take a long step upward in their maturity. They assume the responsibility of driving the family car. It's not a responsibility that should be taken lightly, for in their trust is a 200 to 300 horsepower motor that easily turns into a weapon of death. Driver training in the schools must be supplemented with home training, constant reminders of the demand for courtesy and safety on our streets and highways. The juveniles who do not learn these lessons must be punished. And here again is a problem that the Traffic Commission has given much thought to. Through the Commission, Dallas has set up special courts for the handling of juvenile traffic cases, courts operated by the teenagers themselves. The Juvenile Driver's License Committee meets every week and spends hours with special cases. Their purpose is to see that the driving permits are handled fairly. An advisory function, it's true, but one that saves uncounted hours of time for officials who have the responsibility of screening applicants.
The Traffic Commission has done much to relieve problems in and around schools. Driver training equipment and courses have been added. The third county-wide Youth for Safety Conference has just been held at Southern Methodist University under the guidance of the Commission. And the Dallas School Program has received first award for the past 2 years in the National Safety Council's annual safety contest.
As more and more cars are added to the city street load, traffic around the individual schools becomes more of a problem. Young children are faced with a death-dealing prospect of dangerous crossings and heavy traffic. The manpower of the Dallas Police Department is not sufficient to provide full-time officers. Through the Citizens Traffic Commission and other groups, part-time officers have been recruited to handle traffic near schools. Well-loved men who are devoted to their charges and their duties. As the youngsters grow older and more responsible, they themselves take an active part in school patrols. And even the youngest child respects the red flag of the safety patrolman. This is not an accident. It's an outgrowth of education, spearheaded by the Traffic Commission. And Dallas, with one of the finest records in the nation for the safe conduct of children to and from school, owes much to the planning that produced this record. While construction moves ahead, Dallas must make the best of what it has at the moment. Enforcement of traffic laws must continue at a high level. And here, too, a large force within the Traffic Commission does its part to see that the laws are obeyed.
A secret group of more than 1,000 men, known as T-men, are constantly on the alert to spot the speeder who thinks he isn't being observed. the stop sign crasher who is sure no officers are around. Passed on to the police chief and the sheriff, these T-men reports are processed into letters from the lawmen and sent to the violators. Reminders that violations breed accidents and arrests. In some cases, T-men reports have piled up on certain individuals, helping police spot and arrest habitual violators. Perhaps the most complicated group working within the Commission is the Engineering Committee. Over the years, this group has made careful studies and many recommendations to city and county traffic agencies. They've kept abreast of such problems as one-way streets, parking, traffic signals, eliminating hazards and bottlenecks. Many of their recommendations are in use today, aiding the flow of traffic at a faster pace, yet with greater safety. The newly completed traffic interchange and railroad overpass at Hines Boulevard and Oak Lawn is a prime example of their years of study and recommendations. The building of many private parking garages and lots grew out of the committee's call for the problem to be solved by private enterprise. Off-street parking in the downtown section is largely the result of the committee's planning.
But here again, the recommendations on parking and one-way streets require another E of traffic regulation, the E for education.
Every businessman wants the end result of more customers, but some are unwilling to accept a one-way street proposition or a no parking edict because of short-range or imagined penalties. Progress is stymied by these few. Yet even a schoolboy could figure out that downtown streets can't be used at the same time for both car storage and traffic movement as the load increases. Without alleys, our streets must bear the double burden of cars and trucks. The city can't survive as a major shopping center unless both have adequate access to places of business.
Education moves on to every thoroughfare with our traffic safety signs. Whether or not the individual driver is conscious of every sign, their frequency around the city soon plants the thought in his mind. Signs like "Drunk drivers go to jail" serve not only as a warning, but also as reassurance to the safe and sane driver that the drunks are being taken off the roadways and lodged in the city or county jails. If one driver heeds the warning sign telling him to stay in his own lane, he could be preventing a fatal mishap. The accident-happy drivers may sneer at the signs as pointless cliches, but these careless ones write their own obituaries in the emergency room at Parkland Hospital. If these signs help educate, however indirectly, and help cut down the death, injury, and property loss figures, they have more than proved their worth.
These things are being done now, but what of our city's future needs?
Dallas needs fast action on a one-way street system for the entire downtown area. Within a month or so, the last of the Dallas Transit Company streetcars will have made its last run. The tracks, in many cases, the traffic safety islands, will no longer be needed. And for the first time, a one-way street system for downtown traffic will be feasible.
More shoppers will be able to get into the downtown area, and essential traffic will be speeded up. At the same time, completion of the expressway loop around the central business district will route through traffic away from the downtown area.
Where at all possible, traffic slowing jogs should be straightened out. Widening of essential arteries is a must, as well as resurfacing.
On a long-term basis, we must have a master plan adopted by city officials and covering all phases of transportation and other municipal facilities. We must have certain persons or agencies directly responsible for preparing this plan, and it must be flexible enough to keep one step ahead of the city's development. Provisions must be made for revision so that the plan can best serve the needs of a fast-growing city. And all these long-range plans must be coordinated with capital expenditures so there is a guaranteed continuity along with economic operation. Land buying, zoning, and subdivision control must be tied in, all within the framework of city ordinances that are designed for Dallas growth.
There are legislative needs that rank high on the list of essential items.
City and county traffic law enforcement should be on the same basis, You can't enforce traffic laws where the penalty is multiplied 4 times outside the city limits for the same offense inside.
Corporation court needs to be streamlined to become more effective. More men are needed on the police department staff.
And constantly we must remember that traffic is the lifeblood of the city. Slow down the traffic and the heartbeat slows down. Stop it and the city dies. Dallas people must constantly be informed and aware of what the needs are. Every problem must be measured and met in terms of the 3 E's: enforcement, engineering, education.
Dallas is a great city, and all the greater because each of us knows it is our city. It will continue to be as great as our vision makes it and our children after us. But greatness is not a static thing. It must be dynamic. Our job, the whole city's job, is to keep the lifelines open and free-flowing. It can be done. It must be done.